All right, everybody, welcome to the video here for lesson number 6. So, in class, some of my classes I probably got through the Regents questions, some of them I did not. So I want to at least start the video here, so it's about halfway through the lesson. If you got these questions, we already went over them in class, just fast forward till you start to see the homework video. So, for the first Regents question here, we see a tree, we see an angle, and we want to know the height of the tree. So whenever we don't know something in math, we put an X. Now, it does tell us that the point of the base of the tree to this point on the ground is 20 feet. So if 34 degrees is our given angle, I know X is the opposite side, and I know 20 is the adjacent side. So when we look at SOHCAHTOA, we're trying to figure out which ratio has the opposite and the adjacent side in it. So that would be tangent. So I know the tangent of the angle, 34 degrees, is equal to the opposite side, X, over the adjacent side, 20. And then in class we said, well, I want to get X by itself. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 20. So the X value is just 20 tangent of 34. So if we go to our calculator here, 20 tangent of 34, we get about 13 and a half. Choice 3. Actually, before I move on, for those of you watching the video, if you go to Desmos, there is a scientific calculator option for you. So like if you're at home doing your homework and you forgot to bring your calculator home or just don't have one at home, you could always use this as well. Just make sure you're in degree mode here. Okay. So let's go to number 2. Number 2 says a 20-foot ladder support post leans against a wall, making a 70-degree angle with the ground. So we have this post that's 20 foot in length, and it makes a 70-degree angle with the ground. It then says how far up on the wall do we have to go to get this where we are. So we're going to put the X as the vertical side there. So again, we have an angle. This time we have the opposite side and the hypotenuse side. So if we're looking at SOHCAHTOA, we're going to use sine because it has the opposite and the hypotenuse in it. So I could say the sine of 70 degrees is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Multiply both sides by 20, and I have X is equal to 20 sine of 70. Go to our calculator. 20 sine 70 is about 18.8. Round correctly. For number 3, it talks about this carpenter, and we want to know the length of the ladder. So if we want to know the length of the ladder, I'm going to put X on that diagonal side. So here's our 70. I know the opposite. I want to know the hypotenuse. So again, we use sine. Now the difference here, and you'll see when I write this equation, the opposite is 30, the hypotenuse is X. So now the variable's in the denominator. We did a couple of these in class. So we're going to follow the same rule here. We're going to multiply both sides by X. Essentially, by doing this, we're cross multiplying. So we get X sine of 70 is equal to 30. Divide both sides by the sine of 70. And I get whatever this answer comes out to be. So let's type that in our calculator. 30 divided by the sine of what was it? 70? 70. And we get 31.9. Now this says round to nearest foot. So 31.9 becomes 32 feet. Number 4 also wants to determine the length of the ladder. Almost identical questions. Notice 2 different Regents questions that are almost exactly identical, right? Just different numbers. So opposite hypotenuse. So again, we have sine is equal to 15 over x. Multiply both sides by x. So I have x sine of 75 is equal to 15. Divide both sides by the sine of 75. And again, use that calculator of ours. 15 sine of 75. 15.5. And says nearest foot. So again, round up, 16 feet. All right, so let's move on to the homework. So in the homework, the first 4 questions all ask us to just find the value of x. So for each one of these, the first job we have is find out, well, which trig ratio do we use? So if that's my given angle, x is adjacent, 28's hypotenuse, the opposite side we don't know. Don't want to know, so I don't need it. So the trig ratio that has a and h in it is cosine. So I'm going to say the cosine of the angle is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse side. Because remember, sine of any angle is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So the cosine of any angle is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse, ca, and the tangent of any angle is equal to the opposite over the adjacent, toa. Now, if I multiply both sides by 28, I get x is equal to 28 cosine of 51, which I could plug into my calculator. If you fast forward to this point, I'm using the Desmos calculator, which is good to just know in case you don't have a calculator at home. So if you just go to desmos.com, there's a scientific calculator option you could type in. So I have 28 cosine of 51, so 17.6. Now, what does it say? Nearest hundredth, so 2 decimal places, 17.62. For the next one, we see an angle here of 20. That's our given angle. Opposite side is given. Adjacent side we want to know, so that's going to be the tangent ratio. So the tangent of the angle is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent side. Well, just like the previous problem, we're going to multiply both sides by the denominator of the fraction, which just in this case is x. So we have one more step of algebra to do here to get x by itself. Now we've gotten it so it's not in the denominator anymore, but it's still attached to tangent of 20. So I'm going to divide both sides by tangent of 20. So I have x equals 15 over tan of 20. Let's go into our calculator here and see what we get. So 15 divided by the tangent of 20. 41.21. Perfect. The next one, we have 67 as our angle. Opposite is given. Hypotenuse we want. So that's going to be the sine ratio. So I have the sine of the angle is equal to the opposite side, 3.4 divided by x. So again, multiply by the denominator. But I don't want x times the sine of 67. I want just x. So I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 67. And then see whatever I get there. So 3.4 divided by the sine of 67. 3.69. One thing we should be checking is the hypotenuse should always be the longer side. So in this case, 3.69 is bigger than 3.4, so that pretty much tells me I'm probably right. So let's go to the next one. 59 is our angle. The adjacent side, the hypotenuse side is given, so that's going to be the cosine ratio. So now I'm going to have the cosine of the angle, 59 degrees, is equal to the adjacent side, 432, over the hypotenuse, which is x. Multiply both sides by x. X's cancel. So I have x cosine of 59 is equal to 432. Last algebraic step. Divide both sides by the cosine of 59. and we get x equals some number. I already know before I type it in the calculator, though, it should be bigger than 432. So I have 432 divided by the cosine of 59. $838.77. There we go. All right, last one, number 5. Number 5 has two things it's asking us to find. Now, we're going to find both of them using trigonometry because that's what we're learning about. The second one, we could use Pythagorean theorem to find if we wanted to, but we'll use trigonometry here for both. So angle of 50. Now, I don't know either of these two sides, and I want to know both of them. So I'm going to make one of them x and one of them y. So the x is the opposite side, the y is the adjacent side, and the 110, the length of the rope, is the hypotenuse. So for part A, when I'm trying to determine the height of the balloon, I'm trying to determine x. I have a ratio of the opposite compared to the hypotenuse side, so that's sine. So I'm going to say the sine of 50 is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. Multiply both sides by 110. Less algebra here because now x is by itself. X is 110 sine of 50. So if I type that in my calculator, I get 84.3. It says nearest foot, actually. So we're just going to say to the nearest whole number, so 84 feet. For the next one, it wants us to find the horizontal distance, the ground distance. So that I labeled y. Now, y is the adjacent side. I'm not going to use the hypotenuse because I found this value, so just in case I made a mistake, and also remember we rounded it, so it's not really the exact answer, I want to use the hypotenuse. I want to just use what's given if I can. So I'm going to say the cosine of 50, because that would be the adjacent and hypotenuse, is equal to y over 110. Just like we did with the sine function above, we'll multiply both sides by 110 to get rid of the fraction. So then I know that y is equal to the cosine of 50 times 110. So then y is, again, to nearest foot. Let's go to our calculator. And we have 71 feet. That's it. Hopefully that helped you do your homework assignments. All right. Make sure that you are starting to look over your notes and study as this chapter does end pretty quickly. There's only, I think, like 10 or 12 lessons, not even, maybe even less than that. Let's see how many lessons are here. All right, we're already on 6, so, there's only 11 left. We're more than halfway done. All right. So just keep that in mind. Just keep looking over your notes. Go back and watch other videos. All right. And hopefully this all helps you so you can keep up with everything. All right. See you in class tomorrow.